And you're live.
Good evening, everybody. I'm just going to wait here for a second and see who's tuning into our live with Carol 5. Live with, I'm trying to make it rhyme.
Live
Live
with
Carol
Carol
5
Life.
this evening on this historic day in Black History Month. Tanya, I'm glad to have you here with me again this evening.
Thank you. Hey, did you do anything on 2/22/22 deuces on Tuesday?
How many deuces is that? That's a lot of deuces. I
Yeah.
worked.
Oh, that's
I
right.
worked.
What were you doing? Were you at a city council meeting? Were you at
Probably
CED? Are we going to
CED.
talk about that?
We're going to talk a little bit about it. We're going to talk about a little bit about it. But why don't we go ahead and get into the day, Tanya, and talk about why we're here this evening, which is to discuss the Black New Deal. People might be interested in knowing what it is, what it's about, what does it mean, what does it entail, what will it do. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today, and we're not going to do a long, drawn out live tonight because there are other meetings that are pressing that we have to attend to. But I did want to give people a precursor to what this weekend will entail in terms of the symposium that we're hosting via Zoom that will be available to anyone with an internet connection. And we are also recording it so it can be replayed at a later date for folks who can't participate. But today we're going to talk about a Black New Deal. And we can't talk about a Black New Deal without talking about what the New Deal actually was to the United States. And there was a period in history where the country was experiencing extreme economic unrest based on the stock market crash and a myriad of other factors that were at play at that time as well. So, record high unemployment. Um, People were finding it difficult to be able to feed their families. There was severe depression. Our food sources, not just people being able to find food, but actually the farms that were creating food were going under. So there was just chaos across the country. And so, in order to address that, there had to be federal intervention. So the president at the time that came in after President Hoover was Franklin Roosevelt. And Franklin Roosevelt, actually the longest standing president in US history, created a series of social programs to pull the country out of the Great Depression and put people back to work and save the economy as well as people's lives, basically. But one of the issues with that set of social programs that created art, projects for artists that were out of work, created public works, created housing, just every potential program you could think of. What happened was that it left some people out, and the people that it left out, by and large, were Black people in the United States who were turned away from those social programs. Not everyone, because I actually know people that are living today that participated in those programs that were Black Americans. But by and large, as we see today, the benefits missed Black folks as a whole. So when we talk about the experiences that COVID is creating in our country in terms of lack of employment or housing challenges with people not being able to afford to pay their rents or their mortgages, um, our supply lines breaking down, all of the things that have been happening as a result of this pandemic. We need the same type of social supports and governmental intervention to address the issues that we face today. So while the Black New Deal is not a federal program, we are looking at ways to address the impacts of COVID-19 on the city of Oakland. Specifically, I want to look at how we can lift up District 3, as that's what I have oversight of to some degree, as much as I can in my position. But that's what we're looking at. And I do want to talk a little bit about the history because this is not new. The Black New Deal is not a new thing. Um,
Mhm.
Gosh, I guess it was 2 years ago now Kat Brooks, Turha Ak, and myself came together to discuss how we were going to address the impact of COVID at that time on the Black community, because we were seeing disparate impacts through lack of access to PPE, an already fractured relationship that Black people had with the healthcare industry, and a disproportionate deaths in our community. So we came together. Kat called all of these different Black organizations and individuals, and we had uh, several meetings over the course of a couple months to put together a framework that we brought to elected officials at that time to create an emergency plan to deal with COVID. I will say we did not have a sensitive city council at that time. So we worked with Council Member Brooks. We created a resolution, and it went nowhere. And it was brought to my attention recently that Kat was like, if we would have addressed at that time the impacts of COVID on our community, then we wouldn't be where we are today, specifically around how Black folks are being impacted by COVID-19 and all of the issues that we're seeing around education, public safety, and all these other things as well. So I wanted to give a little context on the history, because this is something that we've been working on for a while. And so then when I ran for office, I made it a point to bring it back to city council when I was elected so that we could start to implement programs that lift up the individuals in the city that are hurting so much and hurting in disproportionate numbers to the population in the city of Oakland. So it is important because, Tanya, it's important for lots of reasons. But can we
Yeah. So, what I want to do is kind of reiterate what we talked about last time that we met on live, and just to remind people that in 2018, the city of Oakland did a race and equity report. And I'm going to read all these little bullet points because it's going to be really too small for people to contemplate. But to begin, the race and equity report of 2018, our overall score for the city was failing. And we got a 33.5 out of 100. And it was even worse when it comes to looking at the statistics for African Americans throughout the city. How did Black people make out on this score? Who is Oakland failing? Black people. Black people were the lowest percentage of business owners in the report. We had the highest rate of youth unemployment. We had the lowest median household income, 37,000 compared to 110,000 for whites. We had the highest percentage living below or at the poverty line. We have the highest percentage who are not ready for high school. The highest percentage of students that are suspended from school. The highest number of asthma rates related to ER visits. The lowest life expectancy. The highest percentage of loan applications denied. The highest percentage of spending more than 30% of our income for rent. The highest number of eviction notices. The highest rate of homelessness, and the highest rate of felony arrests, sorry. So if we were to do another report, how would we do? Well, at this past CED meeting on Tuesday, the city of Oakland introduced the beginning of working on the general plan, and the general plan made some initial findings when it comes to dealing with the housing element. And that housing element had some findings that were pretty shocking to Council Member Fife. And I'm only going to talk about a couple of things. So, amongst the extremely low income residents, non Hispanic, Black, or African American households, which make up around 23% of the city's population, are disproportionately more likely to be extremely low income, or live below the poverty line than any other racial groups at 35.11%. Those who identify as Black or African American represent 47.3% of our unhoused population. That's as of 2019. And I don't know if some of you know, but recently Alameda County is going to do another count. They started this week. But African Americans only make up 10% of the county population as a whole, but we're 47% of the unhoused population
For Alameda County,
for Alameda County.
but 70% for the city of Oakland.
Ooh. Between 2000 and 2019, the proportion of Hispanic and Latinx and non-Hispanic white residents increased, while the city's share of non-Hispanic, Black, or African American residents declined from 36.3% to 23.2%. And then Blacks or African Americans of any ethnicity are largely renters, as are the low income households. So we make up a large percentage of renters in this city. Those are just some of the findings. Carol, do you remember any other findings that particularly got to you?
Just the number of Black seniors living in poverty really stood out to me. Another topic that was not necessarily included in this study, but is a data point that is reflected in the state's public safety records, is that the number of hate crimes for that African Americans experienced over the last few years has been increasing, but it's not something that you hear in the news media, right? You don't hear that the rates have gone up almost 90% and are in the hundreds, but it's because there is anti-Black bias in our media and in our reporting, and there's some things that are happening in the city of Oakland and throughout the country right now to reclaim the space of Black people being the face of violence and crime and all of the things, but we're not talking about the root causes of what's impacting our communities and how can we fix those things, right? So I was just overwhelmed by the CED meeting that we had on Tuesday and all of the information that was revealed through this housing element. And I try to take it in bite-sized chunks because it's a lot to address, especially in light of what's happening in our communities with school closures, with homelessness, with lack of affordability for housing. It's a lot to digest, and it's a lot for any one particular elected official, but it is something that I'm committed to tackling. And that's why we are looking at the Black New Deal as well as funding sources to create investment in our communities so we can start to actually tackle these things and address them intentionally.
Yeah. So just to reiterate, what we're planning on doing, we're in partnership with District 3 office, in partnership with some researchers at UC Berkeley. We're going to be researching legislation and funding sources in order to develop a package of programs and policies in developing a Black New Deal for Oakland. We're going to reinvest in Black Oakland around 6 focus areas: around art and culture, around economics, education, environment, housing, and public safety. And we're going to begin that by hosting a series of discussions on what true investment in Black residents can look like. So on Saturday, we're going to host a Black New Deal symposium, which will feature UC Berkeley scholars as well as key Oakland stakeholders who are going to share their research and their experiences and help inform us about what are some potential programs and policies that we can pass at the city council level, and allow an opportunity for you to share your insights on ways we can improve conditions for Black residents in all of Oakland.
Why did you emphasize all of Oakland, Tanya? I'm just curious.
Well, because what when you do for the least of these, you do for everyone. I know that's a quote in the Bible, and I'm not remembering it correctly, but basically, it's almost like what they call the canary in the coal mine.
Yeah,
You know, what how we treat those who are most vulnerable and most in need is a reflection of, you know, what's going on in the rest of the city.
right,
So when we do for those who are most in need, it makes an improvement for everybody,
right.
you
So
know?
I appreciate you saying that because oftentimes I hear, um, and it's mostly from non-black people. Why are you so just obsessed with race? Why are you only trying to help black people? And I think that response is exactly right. It's on point.
Mhm,
Um, People when they call the city, when they call our offices to do something about homelessness, um, they're not saying, "Can you do something about the unsheltered population that's Black residents?" But the majority of the people that are homeless are Black residents, and that follows a legacy of housing discrimination, um, discrimination in our healthcare industry, discrimination in our educational investments, and all of these different things. There have been failures along the pipeline of social services, and not necessarily that we need social services, but there has been an intentional undervaluing and under investment and support for Black communities because of systemic racism. And one of the things that I thought it was really important to um, to lift up was the fact that the Centers for Disease Control lists structural and interpersonal racism as a cause for shortened lifespans for Black people in America, and that shows up in employment and education and a host of other areas that we don't really talk about. And not that we don't even talk about it, is that we're not doing enough about it. Because
mhm,
this country, as we were saying in an earlier meeting, Tanya, this country was founded on genocide and theft,
mhm,
by stealing bodies and making people work for free to build this country. And everything that has happened as time has gone on has reiterated and reinforced those structures and systems. And that is why, as elected officials, I feel that it is our duty, my duty, to rectify those systems because we're still experiencing the ramifications of them to this day. And so that is why I focus on trying to impact those systems because, as Tanya said, when we do that, when we take care of the least in terms of the folks who've been oppressed the most, then the world gets better for everyone. I truly, truly believe that. And we're going to try to do that legislatively. So we're seeing with other development opportunities, the use of certain tax financing as a way to raise revenue. We're going to look into that to see if it's possible to do that in this district and throughout the city to create a tax base to reinvest in our communities because we know that the most resilient and safest neighborhoods and communities are not the ones that have the most police officers, but the communities that have the most resources. I know you all have heard that a lot over the last 2 years, and the statistics, the data bears that out to be true. And if we invested a fraction of what we invest in our police departments into our children, into Head Start, into early education versus closing schools and impacting already impacted neighborhoods, then we would see a huge difference in generations to come. And because that's never been done, we got to start somewhere because uh, all of our lives are tied up with each other, and so we've
mhm.
got to care a little bit more. So
And I just wanna add a little bit of my own little commentary. So, y'all, this is TDL's opinion, not just not council member Fife's. But I wanted to caution you. I mean, everyone, we are in an election year. People are gonna be running for mayor, people are gonna be running for city council, people are gonna be running for governor. And who do they always go to? and look for votes. Black people. They will be knocking on your door. They will be asking you to support them. And what can they say that they've done for our community? Yet we're the ones that turn out for them. We donate to them. We tell our friends about them. We try to get each other to vote all the time. And yet, what have they done really to really support us in this community? The group of people that built this country with our labor, our sweat, and our tears. I don't think it's enough to come to us during election year and ask us for our support. I don't think it's enough for there to be commercials talking about Black History Month.
Mm.
I don't think it's enough for people to declare that they are in solidarity with us by bending the knee and putting on some ribbon talking about Black Lives Matter. And then when it comes to policy, nothing happens. I don't think that's enough. So I really appreciate that Councilmember Fife wants to actually put her focus and her energy and her heart in this community. And I hope that those who are watching this today can, when folks are coming to you asking for your support, let's hold them accountable to that. Let's ask them these questions. What are you doing to improve my life? Because the Race and Equity Report shows that Oakland is failing Black people, and we need Oakland to step up and do more. That's my 2.5 cents on that.
Thank you for sharing your 2.5 cents, Tanya. It's important. And we see this time and time again. And I want to really make clear for people that I do not believe that we are going to be saved by legislation. I'm not saying that we need someone to do something for us in order to get better. But what we need is for barriers to be broken down. What we need is to stop having not just like little crumbs given to us. We need to do for ourselves. That's critical. But we need to have folks get out of the way so that we can do that and do that effectively. And so you continued investment of taxpayer dollars for what we actually pay, right? Black folks pay taxes too. But then our schools are the first closed, right? The schools with predominantly Black children in them and brown children in them. And I want to say too, like everybody should be reading this housing element and some of the information in the housing element, because absolutely by far Black people are doing the worst in every indicator area. But there's some other folks that are not too far behind. And we've got to ask in 2022, what is happening that so many people are doing so poorly? How did Oakland get a 33.5 out of 100 on equity if we're one of the most progressive cities in the country? What is happening? Because I'm gonna say this, and Tanya, then you can go that to say that you're progressive, but act in ways that perpetuate systemic racism is an indicator, which is why they have the equity indicators report, then that we are maybe not who we say we are. And I experience that on a regular basis in City Hall. This system is not set up to do what we are saying it's set up to do. It is not a democratic system where people's voices are heard. I'm faced with every single day getting calls and emails about issues that people have either voted for through legislation or ballot initiatives, and then somehow things just don't get done. And so I try to find an opportunity every time, Tanya, to say that we have the executive branch, which is the administration and the folks at the top. We have the legislators, which are the city council, and then we have the city staff. And if those different bodies are not working together and on the same page, then you're going to have problems in the city of Oakland. We make the laws in terms of the city council. We cannot implement them. And so my job and my goal is to let people understand who are listening that we need to double down on pushing on the folks who are responsible for implementation to get done what we tell them to do.
True that. So, I we wanted to see if anyone had any questions. It doesn't look like there's a lot of questions, so I'm gonna move forward. Just to encourage you, everyone, if you have time on Saturday to just register and tune in and join us, be able to hear from these scholars, these local residents. You can register at this link here. I've already posted it in the chat. Um, but just to give you a little bit of a preview of what's going to happen tomorrow, on Saturday, we're going to have a discussion on public safety from Professor Nikki Jones at UC Berkeley. We're also going to have a presentation on, um, what has been happening around housing for African Americans historically, and some ideas on what we can do currently around housing from Brandy Summers and Alan Jones. Brandy Summers is also a professor at UC Berkeley. Alan Jones is a prominent African
No,
American. Dones. Sorry, Alan Dones is a prominent African American developer in Oakland. We're also going to have some discussion around environmental justice from another professor, Corbin at UC Berkeley. We're going to have a lunch break, give everyone a break on a Saturday. Then we're also going to talk about education from an OEA representative. We're going to have a discussion on arts and culture from local artist Rifa Sinai. And we're going to talk about economic justice from the Mandela Co op. And we're going to have some closing remarks and end the day. So, please register. You'll get this agenda. You can shop in on any of those topics that are of interest to you. But we want to hear from you. We don't want to just, come up with ideas on our own and try to pass policies that have, no bearing or relation to what Oakland residents truly want. We want to do this in community, with community, and supported by community. Um, so that's the overview of the day. We did get one more question, Councilmember Fife. Do you want to be able to take that?
sure.
This is from Liz Jacobs, who are wondering how and who can we pressure city staff?
If it's overall concerns about just the city operations, then definitely the mayor and the city administrator. Because what I found that they do is they kick it to city council members, but a lot of the things that the residents of the city want done are the are issues that we've passed laws for already, and so it doesn't make sense. What the city administration needs to do is implement those laws that have been passed, and if they're not, then people need to demand an answer on why. So always reach out to the city administrator, and if it's a specific issue with a specific area, then let me know. If it's around like I'm having an issue around truck chassis and abandoned cars that just stay on the street, then we need to talk to the director of certain departments. And if we don't get um, an answer that's an appropriate or timely answer, then we need to go right back up the chain and go to the city administrator and say, 311 is set up to respond to calls around certain issues. And, we need to just do some old school organizing. So anyone, any resident of the city can pressure the city administrator, but definitely let me know, especially if you're in District 3. But I get people calling me from all over the entire city, no matter what district it is. I'm not exactly sure why, but I'm happy to help when I can. But phone calls, emails, visits, I think are important ways to pressure the administration to get on top of what they're supposed to be doing.
Mm.
And pressure me too. Like I have no issue with that. But if I'm not the focus that can actually do something about it, which I'm finding oftentimes I am not, then I'm going to go into old school organizer mode and work with the community as I'm doing in several different neighborhoods throughout the district.
Okay.
Consistency.
Thank you, Councilmember Five.
And thank you, Liz, for the question.
Yeah. So do you have any other final comments? This is going to be a very brief live, everyone. But we wanted to quickly just share with you what's going to happen on Saturday. and hopefully you can attend and join us. But do you have any other final comments, Council Member Five?
Just that the present that we are experiencing is the result of generations that have come before. And we are so used to doing the same thing that we get caught in it being the only way to get things done. And if anybody is paying attention to what's happening in Oakland right now, doing the same thing over and over again is reproducing the results that we see. So I'm one person, but I am committed and dedicated to the transformative change that I ran on. And I need some support in doing what I said that I was going to do, which is represent the voices of folks who haven't had a seat at the table in the city. So I know I'm not going to make a lot of friends, but that's why I'm I'm determined to continue to be in conversation with people who get it, people who do want to see a shift in our city and a shift for the better. But we got to know that folks want things to stay the same. The people in power want to stay in power. They want to stay calling the shots. And I'm trying to shake things up so we can have a cleaner, better, brighter um, city for all of us, not just for people who are wealthy who can afford to pay these ridiculous rents that are popping up all over the city. So Kimberly Hudson said, thank you, Council Member Fife, for organizing with the community in general. Listen, I'm trying, and I'm going to keep on trying. I'm going to keep on working at it because I know things are not going to get better overnight. But once again, I am committed and I'm here for the long haul to get it done. Yeah, that's what's up. And this is Black History Month, Black Futures Month. So I know people are like, oh, she's always talking about Black stuff. Yeah, I'm going to until we do better and until we do right by Black people. When we do right by Black people in America, the whole country will do better. The whole world will be better because then the rest of the world will be like, dang, America finally got it right. They finally got it right by the people that they brought over here to work the land, right? So let's get it right.
All right. Thank you very much. All right, everyone. I hope you have a lovely evening, and I hope we will see all of you on Saturday.
All right. Bye,
Thank you.
everybody. On
Bye.
to our next meeting.